There's a lot going on in the Tribe by Noir community. And I've been hard at work adding a lot of very valuable and important things that you need to know and learn from in order to be able to be successful on your journey. We're talking about shaving off months and even years off of the struggle to be able to reach peak health, right? And that's what this is all about here. Now, when you become a member of the Tribe by Noir community, you get access to all of the courses and guides and member-exclusive live streams and video playlists and community and group coaching calls, etc. Okay? Now, with the guides, there's a few very important key guides. The first one is the High Raw Vegan Nutrition Guide and Diet Plan, or diet plans. And this teaches you how to structure your calories, your macros, your meal structure, and it teaches you how to do that in alignment in order to achieve whatever your goals are, whether that be to gain weight, lose weight, reverse metabolic disorders, and autoimmune issues, okay? And you also get recipes and things of that nature. And it's growing, so I'm adding to it periodically to make it better, okay? In addition to that, we have the alternate day fasting guide, Train, Feast, Fast. If you are looking to drop body fat in a minimal amount of time and add on years to your life, improving longevity, then this is the route to definitely go. This works much more effectively as opposed to just doing a simple caloric deficit or an aggressive caloric deficit. Train, Feast, Fast is geared towards getting you to drop body fat in a record time while preserving lean mass and cutting time off of the journey, as well as saving you money on your grocery bill. We're talking about minimalization, taking all of the complicatedness out of it and making it more efficient. As far as training goes, we have Tribe Flex. Tribe Flex is all about train anywhere and train everywhere, okay? Where you have full fitness freedom. So you can train and reach your fitness goals without the need of a gym, without the need of dumbbells, barbells, kettlebells, and all kinds of other expensive, heavy equipment and take up all kind of space and things like this, okay? Again, minimizing the process, cutting straight to the point, right? Making things as efficiently as possible. You don't have to spend 3 hours training a week, 5 hours training a week. A good 60 to 90 minutes a week is all you really need to be able to pack on quality muscle mass, improve strength, and mobility. So you can go on and live your life and do other things rather than slavishly commuting back and forth to a gym wearing yourself out. And you can do it with just body weight and resistance bands. And then finally, we've got the video series for mindset and self-development, the 3 steps of self-actualization: discovery, assessment, and actualization. And that video series is geared towards teaching you and guiding you through that 3-step process so that you can get a better grip, a stronger hold, and a mastery over your personal psychology. And the reason why you really want to pay attention and take part in that is because that can shave years off the struggle, removing unnecessary mental and emotional blocks that you otherwise would have, all right? And then finally, in addition to that, you get access to the live stream replays, you get access to the growing video library of exclusive content, tutorials, and things of this nature, as well as the weekly group coaching calls that we have where the tribe comes together as a community, right on voice chat. We share our successes, our struggles, our experiences, crack jokes, live Q&A, tutorials, and all that fun stuff. So we have a good time in there. So you get access to all of this when you become a Tribe by Noir member. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the other side for just half off. It's not gonna be like that forever. So if you're serious and you really want to take part, get started. And I'll see you on the other side. All right, what's going on, y'all? How you doing? Welcome to the Monday morning stream. You know what I'm saying? Scheduled as usual. How's everybody doing in the comments here? Give me 1 second here. Put a 1 in the chat if y'all can hear me clearly. If my sound is coming through correctly. John Green, what's going on? Good to see you in here. We got Big Mama in here. Little Big Mama. Big Little Mama. That's right, folks. Hit the like button. Like the stream if you like the stream. All right. I'm banking on the fact you on like the stream. What's going on, Miss D? That's right. You know, we got to create the vibe. We got to get the vibe going in here. And I always gotta attempt. I'm like, I'm not gonna hold y'all for too long, right? One thing that's really been on my mind a lot is simplifying the process, right? The simplification of the process. This is my breakfast, by the way. Basically, my favorite breakfast is like 32 ounces of grapes, right? I wasn't able to get my watermelon this week, right? So grapes, right? That's what we defaulted to. So I hit my grapes, get my 2 pounds of grapes in, and then get the workout in, right? So really ramping it up. I got to do like a video too of my shopping haul, because y'all probably look at my groceries and be like, this man is out of his mind. I got like a whole box of like bananas. I get like 10 pounds of grapes at a time. I get like 8 melons. The fruitarian approach is very interesting, right? Or I say high raw fruit base, right? Whatever you want to call it. I don't just eat fruit, but it is the predominant source of food that I eat, right? So weight gain, right? How I'm building muscle and weight gain and simplifying the process. If you are following a fruit-based diet and you're not weighing your fruit, chances are you're probably really underestimating how much you're actually eating. Oh, how about a video of me shopping? Yeah, I would have to go into the grocery store and do that, right? Start knocking on and tapping and all that with the fruits and stuff. Yeah. I typically don't really I don't record many aspects of my life. I don't, it's like a habit. I got to get into that social media influencer mindset. I don't really consider myself a social media influencer necessarily, right? Stacy, what's going on? Good to see you in here. But yeah, so weighing your food is really important. Like if you get like a food scale and you weigh your foods, because if if you're eating like 8 ounces of grapes at a time or something like this, you're not really going to gain weight, right? It's not really how that works. You're not going to build muscle off of fruit if you're not really eating that much in the first place, right? But simplifying the process. So for example, you see this here, right? Just straight off the vine. So people ask me like, oh, what's a good breakfast? This right here, what's a good recipe to follow? This is the recipe. So weighing your food and then having like a little contest with yourself to see how well you can increase the quantity over time. And I think week by week, increasing the quantity of how much you eat at a time of any given fruit. And when I say gain weight, I'm particularly talking about gaining lean mass. Fruit is very different from any other food in the fact that the more of it you eat, the more body fat you drop and the more muscle you build, right? I don't think there's any other food that's like that.
Right. So basically, in all of my years of coaching and whatnot, one thing I realized is the fact that fruit is the only thing where the more of it you eat, the better your results are all around. And one thing that's kind of interesting too is the fact that I've done this where I've had whole weeks where I cut my protein intake by half. So, for example, let's say normally I eat anywhere from 110 to 120 grams of protein, let's say, right? And I decide that, you know what, I'm going to cut my protein intake in half. And I'm going to increase and I'll make up the difference basically with fruit, which are, for all intents and purposes, low protein foods. And the interesting thing that I notice is I end up having a lot fuller muscle, a lot more strength, better sleep quality, and just a lot more gains overall, right? And that's one of those things. And I did this really early on. And the longer I did that, the more noticeable it became. And when you have like this fruit-based dominant diet, and you're eating the fruits and whatnot in the larger amounts, your recovery is a lot faster. You can train more frequently and all of this type of stuff. It's a fundamentally different thing. You get a lot more mental clarity and all of this type of stuff. It's one thing to see it in the literature and scientific data and things like that. It's another thing to feel it. When you feel it, it's a whole other thing. So you'll have like the OG raw vegan fruitarians, and they're like, yo, I don't eat no starch. I'm against starch in the diet. I don't think we should be eating starch, right? Starch is dehydrating. Starch is this, starch is that. It's not a melanated food, right? And you gotta wonder, or at least I always wondered, why do they say that? Like, why are they against like potatoes and oats and things like this? Why are they against rice and stuff like this? Why are they against starchy foods? And they just say, I get all my carbs from fruit and all of this type of stuff. What's that about? And it's like, well, if you do it, then you'll know exactly what they're talking about, right? But the rules are fundamentally different. You can build muscle on a high protein diet. You can build muscle on a high starch diet. You can build muscle on a raw fruitarian diet. The question is, these things are so fundamentally different. How do you build muscle on all three of them? Right? How do people, even when they don't eat that much carbs, they're still able to build muscle? How's that? Well, basically, there's more than one way to get a certain response out of your body. But the one thing in common is the fact that the only way to build muscle, the only through line, is if you're doing resistance training, effectively, and do you have enough energy to be able to stimulate muscle growth, right? Or to be able to sustain muscle growth. That's the only thing that really matters. So with the fruit-based diet, the only way you're going to not see the gains and the results you want is because you're not eating enough of the fruit, right? A pound of sweet potato is going to be way more calorically dense than like a pound of like cantaloupe or something like this, right? We're talking like 4 to 7 times or something like this. Like it's like 7 times the difference, right? Some kind of crazy number. So you're very prone to under eating. So you can have like a lot of people that go on the fruit-based diet and try to get results, and the biggest mistake is the fact that you're overestimating how much you're actually eating. Mon, what's going on? Good to see you in here. So one of the best rules to follow, right, is to start eating earlier. Because if you're under eating, weighing your food, that's one really good tip. And another one is starting to eat earlier, right? And to be more mindful of getting yourself of eating more frequently. because a lot of people have a habit of going really long periods of time without eating. And it's very important to understand that when you're trying to build your body, when you're trying to improve your body, you need to put more resources in, right? You need to invest in your body more. Right? Now, with the fruit in particular, one thing that's very important is to understand the primary mechanism that causes the results in the first place. The primary mechanism, the reason why fruit works, and it's like, in my opinion, it's the best way to eat. The most amount of upside and the least amount of downside and the least amount of risk. And the reason why is because basically a fruit dominant diet is a blood flow diet. It's a blood health diet. So if you wanted to increase like the health of your blood, your cardiovascular health and oxygen uptake and all of that type of stuff, that's going to lead to better everything. Better blood pressure, better blood sugar, better mental health, better hormonal profile, better everything, right? So for example, these grapes, right? Grapes are very rich in iron, copper, vitamin K. Good source of vitamin K, vitamin C, B1, B2, B5, or all your B vitamins essentially. Right? Very good source of antioxidants, resveratrol, and things like this. It's a detoxifying food, right? So if you wanted to detoxify your liver and your kidneys in order to improve your adrenal output, right? Lower cortisol and things like this, improve insulin sensitivity, reduce aldosterone, right? Grapes is one of those foods. It's at the top of my list. If you wanted to raise nitric oxide levels in your body so you get more vasodilation. And the thing is, if you improve your blood flow, one thing that's key to building muscle is to have more blood flow go to the muscle, right? So for example, like let's say you work out, you're training a muscle. With every rep, that muscle becomes gradually more and more engorged with blood. So when you train a muscle, your body will send blood to that muscle. And the more blood you send to that muscle, the more resources you send to that muscle. More oxygen, more water, more glucose, more everything to that muscle. And it really powers the muscle in a very meaningful way and drives training performance and recovery, and thus leading to growth. Now, as you repeatedly do this more frequently, your body will expand the capacity for blood flow to the muscle. So what happens is your body will engage in something called angiogenesis. And angiogenesis is the formation of new vascular tissues, right? So you get more blood vessels, more blood capillaries, therefore more blood supply to the muscle, right? And so now you're getting even more resources to the muscle because you have more channels of blood flow to the muscle. And this is one of the primary drivers of growth. Because as you have more vascular tissue connecting to that muscle, you'll also develop more muscle fibers. Because the more you train a muscle, the more the infrastructure of the muscle is going to expand. So you get more muscle fibers, you get thicker muscle fibers, and you get more veins and blood vessels attached to those muscle fibers. Right? So it's this feedback loop that you just keep building over time. That's how muscle grows. You don't really need a whole lot of protein to do this. You do need a lot of oxygen and you need a lot of carbon, right? So basically, Well, everything in your body is essentially made up of carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen. The carbon and the hydrogen are the two most dominant things. And then the nitrogen is a small portion, right? I think like the percentage of your lean mass is like, what, 13% or something like this, right? So even like the actual proteins in your body, muscle mass itself is made up of around 24% protein. But the key component of a protein that even makes a protein is nitrogen, right? And that nitrogen is a fraction of what your proteins is actually made out of, right? And that's that 13%. It's a very marginal amount. So protein, the only difference between like a carbohydrate and a protein is the nitrogen molecule. If you detach the nitrogen molecule, you no longer have like a protein per se, right? So people will often talk about protein and don't really talk about what a protein is actually made out of. And it puts this overemphasis on protein consumption. It doesn't make sense to maximize your protein intake to build muscle mass when most of your muscle mass is not made up of protein. It's the smallest portion of your muscle mass is actual protein. But hydration is the number one thing, right? Because you have like the lean mass volume, your muscle volume, that's like 76% water, right? Hydrogen and oxygen, right? So if you're dehydrated, your muscle mass is going to just start dying off. So you have the people who are against starchy foods, and the reason why is because starchy foods tend to be dehydrating. The more starch you eat, the more full you get. And those starchy foods, they suck up a lot of the water, which is the reason why in order for starchy foods to be edible, you have to inject water into them, right? And this is typically done in the cooking process. So you have to boil them, right? Typically, or you have to soak them to some degree. You have to infuse water into these foods in order for them to be edible because they're dehydrated, therefore they're not really edible. With fruits, you don't have to do that. So you can eat a ton of fruit and they're not dehydrating because they come with a lot of water in them. So, you know, with things like rice and quinoa and beans and potatoes and all of these things, these are not really hydrating foods, right? So you have to manually insert the water into them. And being that they're so dense, right? They're so calorically dense, you can't really infuse that much water into them, right? This is the reason why I always advocate for your cooked foods are primarily going to be like your soups and stews, because you have some type of broth, or it's particularly like a wet food. So it's not so dehydrating, but you have it more so at night and you take the rest of the day to hydrate, right? So if you're eating, you know, a lot of protein, a lot of fat, you're eating starchy foods, you can create a very dehydrated environment inside your body. And this can lead to things like gas, bloating, constipation, lethargia, etc., because of the dehydration. Uh-oh, they're going in with the leaf blowers. That's loud as hell. Can y'all hear that? I hope my noise cancellation on my mic is working like it's supposed to, because that sounds loud as hell outside. So that's pretty much the deal with how that works, right? So I really prioritize hydration, but hydration particularly through foods. Right, so if you want to, fruits are also like Fruits are like a good transportation mechanism because of the blood flow thing, right? So if you combine resistance training, frequent resistance training, and I'm going to get into the training in a second. I'm going to talk about my strategy, right? Like what I eat in a day and all this type of stuff. So I'm big into mono meals. So I have like these select fruits that I eat, and they're all a different color. So it'd be like red, yellow, green, right? That kind of thing. So for example, red grapes, I got a ton of honeydew. So that's the green. So we got the red and the green. And then I'll do cantaloupe, and that's the orange. And then the bananas, and that's the yellow, right? So, as a matter of fact, let me see if I can pull this up. And as a guideline, right? One of the simplest things you can do is say how many grams of carbs do I need a day, and then see how much of your fruits you need to eat in order to get that amount of carbs, right? Because carbs, you know, like I tell people all the time, carbohydrates are the primary driver of muscle growth. So I'm going into Chronometer right now, and I'm gonna share with y'all what these amounts look like. And I'm just gonna read it off to you right quick. This is like the simplest thing. This is what I'm doing. This is pretty much gonna be my diet here. So every day, if I have 3 fruit meals, one of those fruit meals is going to be 32 ounces of bananas. 32 ounces of bananas is 208 grams of carbs. All right. This morning I had my 2 pounds of grapes. So 32 ounces of grapes. And that is 164 grams of carbs. All right. And then for the honeydew, it's going to be a little bit more than 2 pounds. So for the honeydew, that's 36 ounces. And that's 92.8. So basically 93 grams of carbs. All right. So in between these 3 fruit meals, that's going to be 1,792 calories. All right. And 465 grams of carbs. All right. So it's 4 meals in a day. The first 3, which are the fruit, that's 1792 right out the gate of just the fruit. You said you don't hear anything? What do you mean? Can y'all hear me? Did my sound cut out? I don't think so. It doesn't sound like. I don't know, put a 1 in the chat if y'all can't hear me clearly. You said you don't hear anything. Oh, you do? Oh, the lawnmower. Okay, got you. All right. Yeah, they out there going nuts with the leaf blower outside, so I can hear it real loud. But yeah, so that's my 3 fruit meals. Basically, each meal is like at least 2 pounds at a time. It could be more than that. So for example, depending on the size of the honeydew, that could be 40 ounces of honeydew, and that would be 1,833 calories and 476 grams of carbs. So basically with the protein is 19 grams of protein and 5.7 grams of fat, right? So you may say, well, the protein is kind of low. And it's like, well, this is where the fourth meal comes in. So my fourth meal, let's say if I do I'm gonna do red lentils. So my final meal of the day would be 4 ounces of red lentils measured dry. And then we're gonna do basmati rice. And the basmati rice, that's another 4 ounces measured dry. And then we do extra firm tofu. And the extra firm tofu, I do about 8 ounces of that. Yeah, like 6 to 8 ounces of that, something like that. And then I get my greens in. So we do the spinach, and we do like a good 4 ounces of the spinach. And then in that I add in some baby bella mushrooms. And we do like 4 ounces of the baby bella mushrooms, and that would be my final meal of the day. Okay, and then I add in things like bell pepper and onion, right? So it'd be like 4 ounces of bell pepper. I'm just doing this right quick. I'm not sharing the screen, but I'll read it off to you. Just to give y'all the numbers. Okay, so basically, yeah. So when I add in that fourth meal is 892 calories, 68 grams of protein, 125 grams of carbs, and 19 grams of fat. So that brings the total caloric value of the day to 2,724 calories with 87.8, basically 88 grams of protein, 600 grams of carbs, and 25 grams of fat. All right. So that pretty much handles it there, right? So you can get all of your protein pretty much in that last meal of the day. So what I do is I basically soak the red lentils and the basmati rice in the morning in in 2 mason jars. So one would be for the red lentils and one would be for the rice. So I'd rinse them, in the mason jars with the sprouting lids, and then I'd leave them to soak. And then what I would do is when I get ready to cook them, I boil the red lentils until they become soft. I don't want to cook them too much. I just want to soften them in the cooking process to make them edible. And then I let them cool off for a little bit, and I throw them in the blender with the 8 ounces of tofu. And then I throw in, my seasoning. So like, let's say if I'm doing like a curry red lentil, I'll put in like 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, a teaspoon of curry powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric. I'll put a pinch of cumin. I'll put in a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. I'll put in a teaspoon of garlic, a teaspoon of onion powder, a teaspoon of parsley, a teaspoon of sea salt, a teaspoon of raw sugar. And I think that about covers it, right? As far as what I season it with. And then I'll add enough water to create the consistency that I want, right? So if I want like more of a soupy kind of consistency, I'll add a little bit more water, and I'll puree it, right? So it'd be like you can make it on the thicker side where it would be like a sauce, or you can make it on the soupy side where you can add more water, and it would make it like a soup, almost like a broth that you can put in the pot, and then you can add in your greens and your mushrooms and your bell peppers and things like that, and make it like a stew in there, right? And then the rice, I just boil it. And when you soak it for that several hours in the morning or just throughout the day, it cooks quicker because of the soaking process kind of cuts down on the cooking time. Can you substitute tempeh for tofu? Yes. So I like to do these one-pot meals where I'll throw everything in the rice and all that type of stuff. And I'll throw that in there. And that'd be like my final meal of the day, right? So basically, yeah, that comes out to 600 grams of carbs out of the day. So I get the first 476 grams of carbs from the fruit, and then I get the other 125 grams of carbs from that final cooked meal of the day. Right? So that's just one way to do it. You don't have to put the rice in, right? You don't have to use those same measurements. That's just an example of what I'm doing, right? So that's one way to do it. Now here's another way. So what we can also do is we can remove all that. Let's say we just want it to be more raw. So we can do an avocado, and we can do, let's say, dry roasted peanuts. Let's say we do 4 ounces of dry roasted peanuts. And that would give us the same 2,711 calories, right? Or close enough. But the only difference is we now make up for that by having more fats in the diet. So now the fats are 79.2 grams of fat, and the carbs are 524 instead of the total 600. And then the protein is 39 grams of protein. Still a small amount of protein, but we don't need a whole lot of protein. Right, we just need the energy balance. Now, if we wanted more protein, we can throw in sprouted lentils. So we can get, let's say we get green lentils. And we can do green sprouted lentils. And we can snack on this the sprouted lentils. So you can add like some sea salt, you can add some coconut aminos, things like that for some flavor. And you can do 7 ounces of sprouted lentils. 7 ounces of sprouted lentils would come out to 18 grams of protein, 44 grams of carbs, and 1 gram of fat. Okay. So if you were to do the 7 ounces of sprouted lentils, now that brings us up to 2,921 calories, 57 grams of protein, 568 grams of carbs, and 80 grams of fat. And this would be more so on the raw side. All right. And let's say if you wanted to bring the fats a little bit down, let's say you wanted to bring your fats down to like 1 gram of fat per kilogram of lean mass. You can bring the peanuts down to 2 ounces, and that would get you 54 grams of fat as opposed to like 80, right? And then you can get in your leafy green vegetables, some tender leafy greens, and a salad. So let's say we did, what type of greens could we do? Let's say we did some chard, right? 4 ounces of chard. Let's say we throw some cucumber in there. And we do 8 ounces of cucumber. So this is 2,649 calories, 561 grams of carbs, 52 grams of protein, and 54 grams of fat. And then, of course, you can add nutritional yeast. You can add whatever type of dressing you want. A water-based dressing. You can add an oil-based dressing. But if you add an oil-based dressing, that's going to raise your fats a bit, so be mindful of that. And that would pretty much be on the more raw side. So you just have to think like, what do you put more of a priority on? Are you really just trying to gain weight and grow in the easiest way possible? And you would throw in more of the cooked meals. If you wanted to have more of a medicinal diet, you're still on a healing journey. You want to feel your best. And cooked foods may make you feel a bit sluggish or bloated or things like that. And you want to have more of a raw approach. Then the secondary approach I just did, right, would be the way to go. And then, of course, you can add in protein smoothies, right? So there are protein smoothies that you can also do, which I'm a big fan of those as well. They're very convenient. And they make the fruitarian approach a lot easier also. And one thing that I like doing, so for example, you can do, and I don't do this very often, but sometimes it depends on how well I've prepped. So I just recently got burdock root powder. I'm a big fan of burdock root. Burdock root is a phenomenal root for detoxifying your liver and kidneys, improving blood flow, sexual health, libido, etc., right? Or reversing erectile dysfunction, all of this. But I would always get like the actual burdock root, like a chopped and sifted burdock root, right? And put it in a tea steeper. I would drink it in tea. With the powder now, I could add the powder to like a smoothie. So I would do like pea protein powder. I would do peanut protein powder, plant-based milk, hemp seeds. And then I would do like vanilla liquid stevia. I would add a little bit of agave to it. Like a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. 5 grams of glutamine, 5 grams of creatine monohydrate, and a teaspoon of burdock root. And that would be in that smoothie, right? So with what I just said, I'm gonna map that out right quick to tell you what the measurements on that are. All right, so just give me a second here. So I do my plant-based milk. Right, so we get about 8 ounces of that. And then the pea protein. I do 2 scoops of that. All right, the powdered peanuts. 2 tablespoons of that. So, and I'm gonna get into like creatine in a second. Because creatine is one of those supplements that's like I actually don't recommend it enough, to be quite honest. But creatine is really dope. Five grams of glutamine. Is burdock root powder in here? Yeah, it's not. It's that burdock root. I'll see a burdock root powder in here. All right, fair enough. That's okay. I'm not gonna be overly concerned with that. So yeah, basically. Oh, and then the hemp seeds. So I'll do like 3 tablespoons of the whole hemp seeds. You can also get hemp powder as well. Right, but I just get the hemp seeds. So that smoothie is 461 calories, 53 grams of protein, 21 grams of carbs, and 21 grams of fat. Right? All right. So yeah, basically, so that's concerned. So if we just do the fruit, like I mentioned, and then we add in that smoothie, that's 2,293 calories. And then you can add in, like, let's say, because that's only, basically this whole thing is only 27 grams of fat. So the only thing we'd have to do if you wanted to do that smoothie route, you could just add in like an avocado and like some nuts and seeds to basically get your fats in. So like, let's say if I was to add an avocado. All right, so the avocado brings us up to 2,521, and then I bring in the, let's do something a little different. Let's say cashews. I mean, you can do walnuts, you can do cashews, you can do almonds, you can do different types. All right, I'm just picking one kind of randomly. So if I add in 2 ounces of the cashews and the 1 avocado, that's 2,846 calories, 527 grams of carbs, 83 grams of protein, and 74 grams of fat. Right, and that pretty much covers all of my nutrient needs for the day. For the most part, right? So there's a variety of different ways to do it. If you wanted to take creatine to really maximize the results of creatine for like muscle building and all that, you can do 5 grams of creatine a day, or you can take like 2 weeks and do 20 grams of carbs a day for 2 weeks. Or like 1 week, I think should be enough. That would be like a loading period that you can do. Creatine works very well on a fruit-based diet. And you become hyper responsive because you're not getting in like the high levels of methionine and histamine and things like that on a fruit-based diet. So your body's not making that much creatine on its own because you're not getting all those other amino acids in an abundance like you would if you were eating more of a high protein diet. So you become hyper responsive to creatine on that more of a raw diet. So on a fruit-based diet, another supplement that I'm a really big fan of adding is citrulline. Citrulline malate. So basically like a fruit-based diet is like insanely rich in vitamin C. And vitamin C is like one of the most important nutrients for detoxification and improving blood flow. Right? Vitamin C improves like blood sugar, blood pressure, vascular health, liver, kidney detoxification. I mean, all that type of stuff. I mean, it's needed for like building collagen, right? So you can get snapback and you don't have a bunch of loose skin when you lose weight. So it helps your skin tighten up quicker, right? That vitamin C. Even in like a lot of skin treatments and serums and things like that, they'll use things like citric acid and vitamin C in the formula for like facial creams and things like that in order to improve the skin, the health of your skin. Vitamin C is no joke. Vitamin C is really powerful. So in all of that fruit consumption, the vitamin C intake, we're talking about like a minimum of like 300 to 400% of your daily RDI of vitamin C, right? So it's a big deal. So when you add in a high vitamin C diet and then you supplement with citrulline malate on top of that, you get massive levels of blood flow, right? So that angiogenesis is on like real steroids. Better blood flow to your muscle, better blood flow to your brain, right? Better sexual health because of more blood flow to those areas as well, right? More blood flow to your joints, right? So you get warmer hands and feet. You get rid of your knee pain, your lower back pain, right? All them joint pains, stiff neck, and all of this. More blood flow reverses all that. Right? Incredible stuff. Finally, as far as the training is concerned, I kind of want to switch something up. I stay within my guidelines of training. I always tell y'all 60 to 90 minutes of training a week is really all you need to build muscle. Right? So basically the guidelines would be normally you can train 20 to 30 minutes a day 2 to 3 times a week, right? In order to get like all the health benefits and build muscle from your training, right? If you train twice a week, it's either going to be like an upper lower split or a full body split, something like this. If you train 3 times a week, that can be like a push pull leg split or a full body split, right? And that's the main approach that I advocate for. Basically, you're hitting each muscle group in your body at least 2 to 3 times a week, where you're getting 3 to 4 sets of training per muscle group in your body, or at least 2 sets per week, right? Because that's really all you need. And basically it's 1 hard set or 2 hard sets, but every set that you do is a set where you push it to mechanical failure, right? So that's how I base it, really. So the amount of reps is not really that important. It is, but it doesn't really matter. It's like, for example, if you do a set and you did that set for 10 reps, you're like, I did this set for 10 reps. It's like, okay. Was it failure? How many reps did you have left in the tank? If you did 10 reps, but you could have did 20, it's not really going to be that effective. However, if you did 10 reps, but you couldn't do another single rep, that set's going to be a lot more effective for muscle growth. Right? So the amount of reps that you do is going to be directly related to effort level. So when you optimize for effort above like reps, well, that's where you're going to get the most returns out of your training. You don't want your training to be longer than it needs to be. Right? If I train for 60 minutes in one training session, that's basically like all or most of my training for the entire week. Okay? So if I do like a 45-minute session and I do 2 45-minute sessions a week, that's my total 90 minutes. 45 minutes on a session goes kind of long, so I'm not really too much of a fan of that. There's one way to do it though also. I don't talk about this way very much, but one way is where you train 10 to 15 minutes a day. Right? So 10 to 15 minutes a day, and you're doing like around 4 exercises, maybe 5 within that period. Right? So when it comes to gaining weight and building muscle, you get the most results from the largest muscle groups. So your largest muscle groups are the ones that you want to target the most, right? So there are training approaches where like you can train all of the big muscles and the small supporting muscles with smaller exercises, right? So you can have like lagging muscle groups like biceps or rear delts or side delts or rhomboids or calves, right? Things like this. However, if you are mainly just focused on trying to fill out your frame, build muscle, and increase overall strength, and you already did the accessory work to build up all the smaller muscles, well, the minimalistic approach now takes center stage. So your training routine can be like, let's say you have like an upper lower split. So on your upper body days, it's like pull-ups, dips, upright rows, and bicep curls, right? And then the lower body day would be like single leg curl, split squat, calf raises, and like hanging leg raises. And you can have those 4 exercises that you just rotate every other day. So you can train 10 minutes a day, 7 days a week. That would give you 70 minutes of training time, right? And that would still fit within the 60 to 90 minutes of training per week. Right? So you're not really overreaching too excessively doing that because you're still fit within the time frame. Right? So now you may think, well, why would I want to do it that way? The reason why you would want to do it that way is because you want to maximize the frequency at which you train. So the more you expose a muscle to training stimulus, you provide more opportunities for that muscle to trigger a growth response to build that muscle, right? But the pathways are kind of like very minimalistic. So you're not doing a whole lot of fluff work, right? You're just doing those exercises and improving on and building on those exercises, right? So it's real simple and it's over a very short period of time. You know, it doesn't have to be 7 days a week. It could be 6 days a week. If you do 10 minutes, 6 days a week, it's 60 minutes. It still fits within the guidelines, right? So this could be very beneficial. And the thing is, it's all compound movements. To basically maximize the amount of muscles you target within a training session. So like if I'm doing body weight dips, I'm hitting my chest, really hit my shoulders and my triceps, right? With that exercise. I can also alternate between like the body weight dips on a parallel bar and decline push-ups. And I can just alternate between those. I can do wide grip pull-ups and close grip chin-ups. And I can alternate between those. I can do a kickstand split squat, and I can do QF split squats. And I can alternate between those. I can do leg curls one day, and then I can do staggered deadlift or staggered good mornings on another day. So I can have like this A-B split for my upper lower days. That's another way to do it as well. So you keep targeting those particular muscles in these different kind of ways. Right? And so basically it's an intense exposure to trigger a growth response, but over a very short period of time. So you're not burning out your nervous system because the workout's real short. So let's say you eat your 2 pounds of grapes, you drink your citrulline malate and like 6 to 8 ounces of water. You go hit your resistance training for 10 minutes and then you go for a walk for 45 minutes to an hour. And that's like your fitness routine for the day. Well, actually, a more complete version would be after you drink your citrulline malate, you do your mobility stuff, right? Your daily mobility, right? For movement hygiene. Then the resistance training, and then after the resistance training, you go for 45 minutes to an hour walk. And you can do that every day. You do that every day. You have a solid sleep schedule, and you get in all your meals. You get into the best shape of your life. All right. There's also like periods in time too, where like let's say you have a muscle group that you particularly want to bring up. Let's say, ladies, you really want to grow. You really want to glow your glutes or your lower body. You want to build your butt. So you can do resistance band split squats every day. So one day you do like let's say Bulgarian split squat. Another day you do deadlifts. Another day you do kickstand squat, and then you rotate between those three every day. Just cycle through. Just one set on a daily basis. One set every day. And you can do that 6 days a week or even 7 days a week. And you can do that for 12 weeks straight. Your legs will definitely grow. As long as you're eating enough. You just need to be eating enough, sleeping well at night, and then just doing that one set every day. That's it. Guys, one of the best things you could do is build your back muscles, back and shoulders. Right? So every day you either do your resistance bands, lat pull downs, or is it resistance band rows or pull-ups? One set every day. So for a man to have like a good upper body physique, you got to fill out your shoulders and your back. Your chest will fill in, but it's shoulders and back, right? So if you really want to build your chest, shoulders, and back, it's dips and pull-ups. So you can do like every single day, one set of dips, one set of pull-ups, till mechanical failure, right? So you can have like your other exercises, your abs, your split squats, your leg curls, all that type of stuff. But every day you start off your workouts with the one set of the pull-ups, the one set of dips, right? Or just any kind of like exercise that targets those two muscle groups. Right? So you're like hyper selective or targeted to grow one particular muscle group. The muscle group that you want to build the most, that's the one that you target and prioritize on a daily basis. as long as it fits in, but in that 60 to 90 minutes of total training time per week, you do that, you get results. All right. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say for this morning. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Much love to y'all. So I'm on here every morning. If we don't have any further questions in the queue, in the chat, we're going to go ahead and log out. I'm going to get to work. Get ready for the day. And for those of you who are tribe members, I'll see you Thursday. All right. Appreciate you. Much love to you. Have a good week.